Welcome to Dr. David Eifrig's Health and Wealth Bulletin. This is Weekly Update. This week we're focusing on foodborne illness, specifically food poisoning. And that's in light of the recent events for the E. coli outbreak that we've been seeing across the country. So far we've seen 121 reported cases of illness across 25 states. And just this week we've seen our first fatality out in California. Now, unfortunately, we haven't been able to pinpoint exactly where this is coming from yet, but we do know it's from romaine lettuce somewhere in the Yuma, Arizona region. Now, this is incredibly important because foodborne illness like E. coli can cause all kinds of problems. Most people might experience things like diarrhea, severe cramps, or vomiting. But unfortunately, if this lasts more than 3 days, or has a fever, or if you're vomiting so much you can't keep any liquid down, you really need to get to your doctor. That's because, especially with E. coli, we're seeing problems with something called hemolytic uremic syndrome. This syndrome is identified by 3 separate problems. The first is anemia because of destruction of your red blood cells. The second is a low platelet count. And the third, and most dangerous, of course, is kidney failure. This is why it's incredibly important to seek medical attention if you have these symptoms for 3 days or longer, if you're over the age of 65, or if you have a compromised immune system. That's why this topic is so important to cover. That's because about 1 in 6 Americans will suffer from food poisoning this year. And it's not just E. coli that you have to be concerned about. There's also listeria, the hepatitis A virus, norovirus, and salmonella. Now, the first thing to understand is which foods are most likely to harbor these dangerous pathogens. That includes raw meat like chicken, beef, pork, or turkey, vegetables and fruits. For instance, we've seen this, of course, in the romaine lettuce scare right now. Any raw milk or cheese, in particular soft cheeses, are more likely to harbor things like listeria. Raw eggs, also undercooked eggs, seafood and raw shellfish. Think of all the problems we've seen with raw oysters. From time to time we see outbreaks from those. Raw sprouts, and also something that might surprise you, raw or uncooked flour. Now, because foodborne illness is so common, again, it's 1 in 6 Americans, you might think that all of this comes from restaurants, but unfortunately, you can also get sick at home. So understanding which foods to avoid when you're out to eat, but also understanding the precautions you can take at home will help keep you safe. That's why right now we've got 5 fast tips for you to follow the next time you're cooking in your own kitchen. The first tip is to make sure you change cutting boards between raw food and fruits and vegetables. Now, the reason for this is because you certainly don't want to be cutting up raw beef and get something like salmonella on the cutting board, and then go ahead and throw your salad greens on there to cut those up. The salmonella will transfer, and you'll likely be sick from it. The second tip is pretty simple. Wash everything well. This also includes washing your hands anytime you touch raw meat, and even anytime you crack an egg. That's because the salmonella can transfer to your skin, and you certainly don't want to be touching other things in your kitchen and spreading that germ. Now, one thing you shouldn't wash is any raw meat. Sometimes people will rinse this off in the sink, but unfortunately that just spreads the bacteria throughout the sink and can cause an even bigger problem. And finally, of course, we still encourage you to wash all of your produce. That includes bagged salads, because they may still contain germs like salmonella or E. coli. Now, it's important to keep in mind here, you can't kill E. coli simply from washing. You can get rid of a lot of the dirt and other bacteria and bugs on there. In fact, we recommend a mixture of 1 part vinegar to 3 parts water. And while you're washing all that produce, don't forget that anytime you cut into a fruit, even something like a cantaloupe, you still want to wash the outside. The reason for this is because there may be something living on the outside of even thick-skinned vegetables and fruits that can transfer to the inside when you cut it with a knife. So just to be safe, always wash all of your fruits and vegetables before consuming. Now, our third tip is to make sure you pack up any leftovers safely. If you're in the habit of leaving things out to cool before you put it in the refrigerator, keep in mind that you cannot leave something out at room temperature for 2 hours or longer. That puts you in the danger zone where bacteria can grow. So it's best just to let the food cool for a few minutes and then put it right into the refrigerator. Now keep in mind, your refrigerator temperature is also really important. Ideally, you want to have it somewhere between 35 and 40 degrees Fahrenheit to keep all of the food safe. And when you pack up your leftovers, make sure they're in shallow containers so that the food can cool quickly and evenly. Now remember, we did tell you that you should still wash all of your produce, even though washing alone will not kill E. coli. That's because E. coli can get into microscopic crevices within your produce and can still make you sick even after you wash it thoroughly. Things like bleach and vinegar mixtures still won't kill it. But the best solution here is to cook it. That's tip number 4. In fact, researchers from the New York Institute of Technology discovered that boiling spinach for 2 minutes killed 99% of all bacteria. Now that's great news, and most leafy greens work really well if you boil them. Things like kale, collard greens, spinach are all wonderful additions and easy to cook. Now our last tip is to subscribe to a service that sends out alerts for things like food recalls and other safety concerns. For instance, you may not have heard about the E. coli outbreak until it was too late. Maybe you'd already bought some romaine lettuce, or you or a loved one were getting sick from it, even though it had already been spreading throughout different states. Now there are a few alert services that we recommend. The Stop Foodborne Illness website has an e-alert service, which will send you alerts anytime there's a problem. There's also Food Safety News. You can sign up for their newsletter. And the one that we subscribe to is the US FDA recall alerts. And they send those pretty quickly and will alert you to any sort of problems in the food supply. That's it for now. We hope these tips will help you stay safe while you can still enjoy all of your fruits and vegetables. If you have any questions or comments, keep sending them to our feedback line. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.